Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm sitting here with a bunch of books which I managed to read in March. March turned out to be a pretty good reading month just because of the coronavirus, keeping us home, giving us plenty of time to read, and I did exactly that. So I have here 8 books which I read in March. It's been quite a while since I last did a wrap-up on this channel, so it's good to be back. We're going to go through the books as I'm sitting with them because I just can't deal with having to organize them. You just have to be okay with that. With that being said, I have on top of this pile a book which I've already read, and a lot of people commented that I was very brave to pick up this book for a reread this specific month. But I will say that even though this is a book about a deadly virus that spreads around the world and kills about 99% of the population, it was still a comfort read because this book made, by the way, this is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. You can see that it's been a while since I last did a wrap-up, but this book gave me comfort because it makes me realize that things could have been so much worse in the world today than they actually are. I do realize that we see a lot of deaths and a lot of people who are ill, a lot of our loved ones who are in hospitals, and my heart definitely goes out to them. But the thing is that in this book, almost everyone dies, and it happens from day to day. No one knows what's going on. And then we follow, as you might know, a theater troupe who goes around to try and maintain civilization, try and spread the words of Shakespeare, and try and remember what beauty and art used to be like in the old world before the collapse. This was a reread, as I said. I read it again because I didn't quite remember parts or lots of the story actually, but I really liked it. It gave me comfort, it was intriguing to read, and I do bump up my rating of this book from 3 to 4 stars. Maybe it's because of the times we're living in, which made me appreciate it a lot more. Next we have a Danish book and a Danish author, so I will just briefly mention it. It's a book I borrowed from my mother. It's called In en stjerne by Puk Kvartrup. It translates into a star, I think. And it's about this woman. It's a non-fiction book about this Danish woman who lost her husband in a heart attack when she was 26 and when he was 27. So it was very sudden. She was in the middle of preparing her son's birthday party. He was about to turn 2 when this happened, and she was also pregnant with their second child. Such a devastating book, which was an eye-opener. I don't think you can read this book without having emotions about it. I definitely did, and it was a great read in a very devastating way. So definitely a 5-star read from me. Read it, check it out if you live here in Denmark. Then on to the best book I read this month. I really loved this one. It's another non-fiction. I picked it up on a whim. It's been on my shelves for a year, I think. And it is called The Reading Cure: How Books Restored My Appetite by Laura Freeman. Now this book is about a woman who used to be anorexic, and she still is a little bit. She's still dealing with this disease, but she's much better now because of books she's read. Books were the way that she coped with this illness, and it was the way that she started realizing how delicious food can be, and she started wanting to try and eat some of those foods for herself. Such an inspiring read. I don't think I've ever read about a woman who cures herself through books. She reads Charles Dickens, she reads Virginia Woolf, and she reads about what they eat and all of these delicious meals that they bring up in their books. And she kind of wants to eat that egg, she kind of wants to eat that pudding, and so she starts trying that out in her real life, and that's what cured her over the span of about 10 years. Really interesting read, both if you're interested in this kind of story, but also if you're interested in books naturally, which I think most of you are. As I said, my favorite book of the month, and definitely a 5-star read. Then we have a bunch of library books which I managed to get through this month. They are due back. They were due back a few days ago, but libraries are closed, so I will have to hold on to them until they are opened again. I hope I won't get a fine. I don't think I will, but who knows these days. First book is Scythe by Neil Schusterman, the first one in a trilogy. I have the next 2 books on hold at the library. This is a post-apocalyptic book about a world in which we have cured everything. We have found the cure to everything you can even imagine, and that means no one dies. You can even outgrow your old body and turn it into a young and fresh one. Such a nice concept, but that also means that we have these Scythes whose job it is to go around and kill people, because you cannot have an outgrowing population. You have to maintain population growth, and this is the way they do it. And then we zoom in on 2 young adult characters who are chosen to be Scythes and who have to fight to get that role. I don't want to say much else other than it was a little bit underwhelming. It read very much like young adult to me, which I have no problem with, but it felt like it had too much action and not enough depth in my opinion. It was a 3-star read for me, but I'm definitely intrigued to pick up the next 2 books because I hear this series only gets better. Next we have the biggest surprise of the month, because it's a book that I didn't have high hopes for, but then I read it and now it's just a book very close to my heart, and that is The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This is the Danish cover, but it's the same book, I promise you. You can get it anywhere you live, I think, unless you live in a country in which you are locked up so that you cannot receive new books. Anyway, so this was just a comfort read in these days. I think I read it at the perfect time. I read it at a time in which we are locked up in our apartments, and I just needed a comfort read, and this was it. It's basically about this woman who is on the search for a new apartment. She finds this apartment, which is a flat share, so that she has to share it with another man. And she not only has to share the flat, she also has to share the bed, because there's only one bed in the flat. Turns out this man is a night worker, so she will have the apartment and the bed to herself during the evenings and the night, and then when she goes to work, the man will come home and he will start sleeping and living. Such an adorable read. I definitely am intrigued to read more by this author, because this is the kind of contemporary fiction that I like. I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes I don't like these kinds of books. I think it's also got to do with my mood. But this one I definitely like, and it was a 4-star read for me. Then we have a horror book, and that is Stephen King's The Institute. Once again, this is the Danish cover. And I have mentioned in a previous video that I have very ambivalent feelings about Stephen King. I tend to like his beginnings, and then towards the end I feel like it drags out and I'm no longer interested, and then I just read for the sake of finishing. But that wasn't the case with this one. This is another big surprise of the month because I loved it. It was a 4-star read. I loved it from beginning till end. I was intrigued by the concept. I loved how it was plotted and written. It was just a really good scary read about children who are kidnapped and experimented on, and I'm not going to take it further than that because you really have to read it for yourselves and find out what the heck is going on. It has a lot of references to Stephen King. It takes place in Maine. It's got references to his other books. For instance, I found references to The Outsiders and to Carrie, and also to other books which I've forgotten now. But really a great surprise. I love it when books surprise me, and I will dare say that this is one of the most intriguing books I've read by Stephen King. So hooray for finally finding a book that I could finish with a smile on my face. Even though it's a very tragic book, I really liked it. 2 more books to go. Next we have another young adult book, and that is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. The second book in the trilogy, so I'm not going to go too much into the plot. But I will say that this book was better than the first one, which is Skyward. I liked Skyward. I think it was a 3-star read. This one was more of a 4-star read because it's just much more interesting. It's much more about people and character growth, I think, and the setting is just interesting, very interesting. I can't really say too much. Just know that if you read the first book and liked it, I think you should also read this one because I do find it better than the first one. And the very last book I have to show you was also the winner of the Man Booker Prize last year, or the partial winner, and that is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. It's one of those books that's about society today, but it's also about women. It's about feminism, it's about generations, because it follows a new person in each chapter, but all the characters have relationships with each other in some way, and it follows their struggles in life, being a woman, also being an Afro-American woman in today's society, and it's just a very interesting and important read. So I definitely see why it won the prize. I liked it quite a lot. I think I would give it 3.5, 4 stars. It's not one of those books that will stick to my mind for years and years, but it's definitely a book that impressed me as I read it, and I do see, as I said, why it won the Man Booker Prize. So that was it. That was all the books that I read in March, and I'm pretty proud of myself for having read that many books. And also a lot of these books are quite heavy in content, but also heavy in the pages. So I'm proud of myself, I will have to say, and I look forward to April because I have a feeling that April will become an even better reading month for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up, and until my next video, happy reading.